The air in the jungle was heavy with the smell of rain and old earth. Tall trees rose high above the ground, and their thick leaves blocked most of the sunlight. Rian wiped the sweat from his face as he walked deeper into the ancient ruins. He had been in the Yucatan for 3 weeks, leading a small dig team from the University of Nueva Merida. Every day had been slow work brushing away dirt and stone to reveal pieces of the lost Mayan city. But that morning something unusual had happened. One of the workers found a deep crack in the floor of a collapsed temple. The opening was narrow and half hidden under tangled roots. When Rian crouched to look inside, he felt a strange breeze rising from below. It was cool and dry, which was odd for the damp jungle. Rian called 2 of his team members to help. Together they cleared the roots and loose stones until a dark gap large enough for a person appeared. Rian switched on his headlamp and looked down into the crack. A rough stone staircase led into the earth, disappearing into darkness. His heart beat faster. This could be an untouched chamber, a place that no one had seen for hundreds of years. He decided to go down himself. With care, he placed each foot on the worn steps. The air grew cooler as he descended, and the sound of the jungle faded until all he heard was his own breathing. After about 20 steps, he reached a flat passageway. The walls here were smooth and covered with carvings. At first, he thought they were ordinary Mayan glyphs, but as he looked closer, he saw they were different. The shapes were sharper and more complex. Some looked almost like star patterns or maps. He ran his fingers over the carvings and felt a faint vibration in the stone. The passage ended in a large round chamber. Rian stepped inside, and his lamplight fell across something that made him freeze. In the center of the chamber stood a throne. It was not made of stone like the rest of the ruins. It was made of a black crystal that shone faintly even without light. The throne was tall, with a high back shaped like a rising sun. The seat and armrests were smooth, as if carved by tools more advanced than anything the Mayans had used. Around the throne, the floor was marked with a wide ring of symbols. These glowed faintly with a soft blue light. Rian felt a chill that was not from the cool air. It was as if the throne was aware of his presence. He slowly walked around it, taking notes and pictures. He could not shake the feeling that this was not just a royal seat, but something more. The craftsmanship was too perfect. The crystal seemed alive. As he stood there, he noticed something else. The air in the chamber felt heavy yet calm, like a place waiting for something to happen. He thought about calling the rest of the team, but then stopped. If too many people came down, the fragile carvings and floor might be damaged. And part of him wanted a few more moments alone here. He took another step closer until he was right in front of the throne. Without fully thinking, he reached out and touched the armrest. It was cool to the touch, yet a warm pulse traveled through his hand into his arm. The blue symbols on the floor brightened. A low hum filled the chamber. Rian pulled back his hand, but the hum did not stop. The light spread slowly from the floor ring to the walls, where the strange carvings began to glow one by one. Rian's heart pounded. He looked toward the staircase, but there was no sign of danger. The glow was steady and the hum gentle, almost like a heartbeat. Then in the far corner of the chamber, a thin column of light rose from the floor. Shapes moved within it. He stared and saw the outline of a tall man wearing a headdress of feathers and gold. The figure's face was calm and proud. His eyes looked directly at Rian, though they were made of light. When the man spoke, the voice was deep and smooth, though Rian could not understand the words. The figure lifted one hand and pointed toward the Vorta throne. Then the column of light faded, and the hum grew quieter. The blue glow on the floor dimmed but did not vanish. Rian stood still, breathing hard. He had never seen anything like this in his life. This was far beyond normal archaeology. It was as if the chamber had been asleep for centuries, and his touch had woken. I took out his notebook and tried to sketch the symbols on the floor and walls. The designs were unlike any recorded Mayan glyphs. They seemed to mix patterns from the stars, With lines that looked almost like a machine diagram, Rian felt certain that the throne and the carvings were connected. Whatever power was in this room had been hidden for a reason. Finally, he turned back toward the staircase. The moment he placed his foot on the first step up, the hum stopped entirely. The chamber fell silent, and the light faded until only his headlamp lit the way. When he climbed out into the jungle, the air felt heavier, as if a storm was coming. He looked back at the dark gap in the temple floor. Something inside him told him this was only the beginning. The Mayan king's hidden throne was awake, and it had chosen him to find it. That night the jungle was quiet. Too quiet. The usual calls of birds and insects were gone, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Rian sat inside his small camp tent, trying to focus on his notes from the day, but every time he closed his eyes he saw the glowing blue floor ring and the tall figure made of light. He felt like he had stepped into something far greater than a normal archaeological find. He finally lay down to rest, but sleep did not come easily when he drifted into dreams. They were not his own. He saw the same man from the chamber, dressed in a long robe with patterns of gold and deep red. The man stood on a high stone platform before a crowd of warriors. His voice was firm and commanding, yet filled with care. Rian could not understand the words, but he felt their meaning. The man was warning his people of an approaching danger from the skies. The dream shifted. Rian saw the black crystal throne glowing with fierce light. The man sat upon it with both hands resting. On the armrests, strange symbols filled the air around him, as if floating in invisible water. The ground shook. A beam of light rose into the sky and struck something above the clouds. Rian felt a wave of power surge through him, even though he was only a watcher in this vision. He woke suddenly. His heart was racing and his hands were trembling. Outside the tent, the night was still dark and silent. A strange glow lit the trees near the ruins. It was faint but steady. Rian grabbed his flashlight and hurried toward the collapsed temple. When he reached the gap in the floor, he saw the light was coming from below. He descended the staircase, again his footsteps echoing in the cool air. The chamber was just as he had left it, except the throne now shone faintly. The blue floor ring pulsed like the slow beat of a heart. Rian felt drawn to it, though his mind told him to be careful. He stepped closer and noticed that the carvings on the walls had changed. Where before they had shown maps and shapes, they now moved slowly, as if alive. Lines shifted and patterns rearranged themselves into something new. In the center of the floor, the symbols brightened. Rian reached out without thinking and placed his hand on the armrest again. The hum returned, stronger than before. This time the glow spread not just across the floor, but up the throne itself until it was covered in light. A deep sound like a drum echoed through the chamber. From somewhere far away, a second sound answered. It was lower, deeper, and seemed to shake the ground under his feet. Suddenly images filled Rian's mind. He saw the earth from above with bright points of light in certain places. One of them was here in the Yucatan. Others were scattered across the oceans and distant lands. Each point glowed the same blue as the throne. The image zoomed closer to show tall crystal towers connected by streams of light. He sensed that these towers were part of something ancient and powerful. Then the vision changed. He saw the same serpent-shaped ship from his dream. It drifted through black space, its golden scales glinting in starlight. Symbols like those on the chamber walls were etched along its sides. A cold presence seemed to follow it, as if it carried not just warriors, but something far worse. The ship turned and began to move toward Rian's breathing quickened. He felt the presence of the tall man again. This time the figure spoke clearly in a language Rian did not know yet somehow understood. The words formed in his mind as if placed there. The voice said, "The great return has begun. The throne must rise again. The enemy will come for the heart of the world. You must awaken the guardians." Before Rian could ask what this meant, the vision faded. The blue glow dimmed but did not vanish. The hum softened to a gentle throb in the floor. Rian stepped back, his legs unsteady. He realized the throne was not just an artifact. It was a command seat for something vast, hidden beneath the earth. He left the chamber and climbed out into the jungle. The sky above was cloudless, but a strange shimmer moved among the stars. For a moment, he thought it was his imagination, but the shimmer grew brighter, then vanished. He felt sure the vision was not only a warning, but also a sign that the enemy was already on the way back. At camp, he found two of his team awake. They said they had felt a vibration in the ground and heard a low hum coming from the ruins. Rian decided not to tell them everything yet. He needed time to understand it himself. Instead, he said it was probably a minor shift in the stones, but inside, he knew the truth was far greater later. That morning, messages from the outside world reached the camp. Satellites had detected a sudden energy spike in the region during the night. The readings were unlike anything scientists had seen before. Government officials wanted to know if there had been an explosion or a meteor strike. Rian answered cautiously, saying they had found a sealed chamber that might have unusual materials. He left out the glowing throne, the visions, and the figure who spoke to him. As the day passed, the jungle returned to its normal sounds. Birds sang again, and insects buzzed in the warm air. But Rian felt a quiet pressure inside his mind, like a faint echo of the throne's hum. It was not unpleasant, yet it never faded. He wondered if the connection to the tall man, the king of the visions, was now permanent. At night, he sat alone by the fire, thinking about the words. The great return has begun. The enemy will come, awaken the guardians. He had no idea what the guardians were, but he sensed they were tied to the glowing towers in his vision. If those towers were real, they might still exist hidden somewhere on Earth. As the fire crackled and the jungle whispered in the dark, Rian made a silent promise to himself. He would find the meaning of the throne and the visions, and he would be ready when the enemy arrived. That night, the jungle was quiet. Too quiet. The usual calls of birds and insects were gone, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Rian sat inside his small camp tent, trying to focus on his notes from the day. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing blue floor ring and the tall figure made of light. He felt like he had stepped into something far greater than a normal archaeological find. He finally lay down to rest, but sleep did not come easily when he drifted into dreams. They were not his own. He saw the same man from the chamber, dressed in a long robe with patterns of gold and deep red. The man stood on a high stone platform before a crowd of warriors. His voice was firm and commanding, yet filled with care. Rian could not understand the words, but he felt their meaning. The man was warning his people of an approaching danger from the skies. The dream shifted. Rian saw the black crystal throne glowing with fierce light. The man sat upon it with both hands resting. On the armrests, strange symbols filled the air around him, as if floating in invisible water. The ground shook. A beam of light rose into the sky and struck something above the clouds. Rian felt a wave of power surge through him, even though he was only a watcher in this vision. He woke suddenly. His heart was racing and his hands were trembling. Outside the tent, the night was still, dark and silent. A strange glow lit the trees near the ruins. It was faint but steady. Rian grabbed his flashlight and hurried toward the collapsed temple. When he reached the gap in the floor, he saw the light was coming from below. He descended the staircase, again his footsteps echoing in the cool air. The chamber was just as he had left it, except the throne now shone faintly. The blue floor ring pulsed like the slow beat of a heart. Rian felt drawn to it, though his mind told him to be careful. He stepped closer and noticed that the carvings on the walls had changed. Where before they had shown maps and shapes, they now moved slowly, as if alive. Lines shifted and patterns rearranged themselves into something new. In the center of the floor, the symbols brightened. Rian reached out without thinking and placed his hand on the armrest again. The hum returned, stronger than before. This time the glow spread not just across the floor, but up the throne itself until it was covered in light. A deep sound like a drum echoed through the chamber. From somewhere far away, a second sound answered. It was lower, deeper, and seemed to shake the ground under his feet. Suddenly, images filled Rian's mind. He saw the earth from above with bright points of light in certain places. One of them was here in the Yucatan. Others were scattered across the oceans and distant lands. Each point glowed the same blue as the throne. The image zoomed closer to show tall crystal towers connected by streams of light. He sensed that these towers were part of something ancient and powerful. Then the vision changed. He saw the same serpent-shaped ship from his dream. It drifted through black space, its golden scales glinting in starlight. Symbols like those on the chamber walls were etched along its sides. A cold presence seemed to follow it, as if it carried not just warriors, but something far worse. The ship turned and began to move toward Rian's breathing quickened. He felt the presence of the tall man again. This time the figure spoke clearly in a language Rian did not know yet, somehow understood. The words formed in his mind as if placed there. The voice said, "The great return has begun. The throne must rise again. The enemy will come for the heart of the world. You must awaken the guardians before Rian could ask what this meant. The vision faded. The blue glow dimmed but did not vanish. The hum softened to a gentle throb in the floor. Rian stepped back, his legs unsteady. He realized the throne was not just an artifact. It was a command seat for something vast, hidden beneath the earth. He left the chamber and climbed out into the jungle. The sky above was cloudless, but a strange shimmer moved among the stars. For a moment, he thought it was his imagination, but the shimmer grew brighter, then vanished. He felt sure the vision was not only a warning, but also a sign that the enemy was already on the way back. At camp, he found two of his team awake. They said they had felt a vibration in the ground and heard a low hum coming from the ruins. Rian decided not to tell them everything yet. He needed time to understand it himself. Instead, he said it was probably a minor shift in the stones, but inside, he knew the truth was far greater. Later that morning, messages from the outside world reached the camp. Satellites had detected a sudden energy spike in the region during the night. The readings were unlike anything scientists had seen before. Government officials wanted to know if there had been an explosion or a meteor strike. Rian answered cautiously, saying they had found a sealed chamber that might have unusual materials. He left out the glowing throne, the visions, and the figure who spoke to him. As the day passed, the jungle returned to its normal sounds. Birds sang again, and insects buzzed in the warm air. But Rian felt a quiet pressure inside his mind, like a faint echo of the throne's hum. It was not unpleasant, yet it never faded. He wondered if the connection to the tall man, the king of the visions, was now permanent. At night, he sat alone by the fire, thinking about the words. The great return has begun. The enemy will come, awaken the guardians. He had no idea what the guardians were, but he sensed they were tied to the glowing towers in his vision. If those towers were real, they might still exist hidden somewhere on Earth. As the fire crackled and the jungle whispered in the dark, Rian made a silent promise to himself. He would find the meaning of the throne and the visions, and he would be ready when the enemy arrived. The morning sky over the jungle was red with the first light of the sun. Rian stood on a ridge near the ruins, staring toward the distant coastline. A faint golden shimmer hung above the horizon where the serpent ship had landed the day before. The air was heavy and still, as if the land itself was waiting for what would come next. By mid-morning, news reached the camp through the radio. The Kathori had stepped onto Earth. A group of them had walked from the serpent ship onto the sandy shore. Witnesses described them as tall and thin yet strong, their bodies covered in golden armor that seemed to grow from their skin. Their faces were long with high ridges along the cheekbones and eyes that glowed like molten bronze. They moved with slow grace and spoke in deep voices that carried far. The first contact had been tense. The Kathori spoke through devices that turned their words into human languages. They demanded the black crystal throne. They claimed it was their rightful property taken from them long ago. If it was not returned, they would take it by force. They gave no time limit, only the warning that they would not wait forever. Rian listened carefully to the reports. Every detail matched the visions he had seen in the throne chamber. These were the same beings the tall man had fought thousands of years ago. They had returned to finish what they had started. The Cathari had not yet attacked, but they had made their power clear when a group of local soldiers tried to block their path. The Cathari leader raised one hand, and the ground shook. A ripple of force swept forward, throwing the soldiers aside without touching them. The Cathari did not kill, but they showed they could destroy if they wished. That evening the camp felt uneasy. The team members whispered about leaving before the enemy reached the ruins. Rian understood their fear, but he also knew he could not leave. The throne had chosen him in some way, and if the Cathari took it, the entire world could be at risk. When night fell, Rian returned to the throne chamber alone. He stood before the glowing seat and placed both hands on the armrests. The hum rose around him, and the tall man appeared again. His presence filled the chamber with calm strength. The enemy stands on your soil, the man said. They seek to bind your people as they once did. In my time we rose against them. We built the towers to drive them away. You must awaken these towers before the Cathari strike. Rian asked where the towers were. The man's image shifted, and the chamber walls turned into a map of the world. Points of blue light appeared at different places across oceans and continents. One was here in the Yucatan, another deep in the Pacific, another in the mountains far to the north, and more scattered beyond. The man told Rian that each tower had its own guardian seat, like the throne. Only when all were awakened could the defense be complete. Before Rian could ask how to reach them, the vision faded. The hum softened but did not vanish. He knew he had to start the search soon, but he also knew the Cathari would not give him that time easily. Next morning, loud sounds shook the jungle. From the ridge, Rian saw movement in the distance. A golden column was advancing slowly from the coast toward the inland hills. At the front marched the Cathari. They moved in perfect formation, their armor catching the sunlight. Behind them floated strange machines, shaped like long ovals that glided just above the ground. They carried supplies or weapons, he could not tell. The Cathari did not try to hide their approach. They wanted the world to see them. Messages from governments urged all civilians to stay away from the advancing force. Some nations spoke of trying to fight them, but most feared open battle without knowing the full strength of the serpent ship. By midday, the golden column stopped at the edge of a small village not far from the ruins. Rian heard later from villagers who fled that the Cathari leader had stepped forward. He was taller than the rest, his armor darker with lines of red light running along the edges. His voice was deep and steady when he spoke. "Return to claim what was forged by our hands," he said. "Your kind hid it from us long ago, but now it will serve its true purpose again. Bring us the throne, and we will leave your lands in peace. Refuse, and the skies will burn." The villagers could do nothing but watch. The Cathari did not harm them, but their machines hovered near the homes as a warning. The leader gave the same message to human authorities who had arrived. No one dared attack. The Cathari left the village and began moving again toward the ruins. That night, the serpent ship itself lifted from the coast and drifted inland, stopping above a wide plateau not far from Rian's camp. Its presence was a shadow over the land. Even at night, its golden scales glimmered under the starlight, and faint lines of light traced across its surface like flowing rivers. Rian sat by the fire thinking about the towers and the guardians. If the Cathari reached the throne before he could act, the chance to awaken the towers might be lost forever. He wondered if he could move the throne or hide it, but the seat seemed fused to the chamber floor as if it had grown there, and somehow he felt the throne wanted to stay exactly where it was. Far above the jungle, the serpent ship hung silent and unmoving. On the ground, the golden column of Cathari warriors camped for the night. Their machines glowed softly in the darkness. It was only a matter of time before they reached the ruins. Rian knew that the next day might decide everything. The Mayan king's hidden throne was no longer a secret, and the enemy was close enough to take it by force. The air in the jungle was heavy with heat, and the sound of distant drums of thunder. Rian stood at the edge of the ruins watching the horizon. The golden column of the Kathiri was closer now. By his guess, they would reach the site by the next day. He felt the weight of time pressing down on him. If he did not find a way to awaken the towers, the throne alone might not be enough to stop them. He returned to the throne chamber, determined to search every corner for clues. The glow was faint when he entered, but the hum began to rise as soon as he stepped inside. He placed his hand on the armrest, and the symbols on the floor brightened. The tall man appeared again, his figure clear and steady. "The towers are below you," the man said. "Not far from. This seat lies the heart of the network. It is the first of many. Without it, the others cannot rise." Rian felt a pull to the far wall of the chamber. When he approached it, the carving shifted, and an outline of a doorway appeared with a soft grinding sound. The stones slid aside, revealing a narrow passage sloping downward. Cool air drifted from the opening. Carrying a faint scent of earth and metal, he stepped inside. The walls were smooth and lit by thin lines of blue light that ran along the floor. The passage twisted and dropped deeper into the earth. After what felt like a long walk, he entered a huge underground hall. It was so vast his flashlight could not reach the far walls. In the center stood a tower of black crystal rising from the Kamea floor to vanish into the darkness above. The tower pulsed slowly with the same blue light as the throne. Its surface was covered in the strange star-like patterns he had seen before. When he placed his palm against it, the hum grew louder and the light brightened. Images filled his mind again. He saw the same map of the world with points of blue light. Lines of energy connected them, forming a web across the planet. "This is the hidden network," the tall man's voice said in his mind. "These towers draw power from the earth and the stars. When the guardians sit upon their seats, the towers awaken and join as one. In my time, they drove the Kathiri from our skies. Now they must do so again." Rian asked how to awaken this tower. The man's voice replied, "You already have the bond. Place the seal in the heart of the crystal, and it will rise." Rian looked down and found that in his hand was a small disk of black crystal. He did not remember picking it up, but it felt warm and alive. He searched the base of the tower until he found a narrow opening shaped exactly to fit the disk. When he slid it inside, the tower responded. Instantly, light exploded upward. The pulse quickened until the entire hall glowed like a second sun underground far above. A deep tremor shook the jungle. In the ruins, the floor ring of the throne lit fully, and beams of light shot out from the carvings toward the sky outside. In the open air, people miles away saw a column of blue light pierce the clouds. It reached high into the atmosphere and spread into a faint dome of shimmering energy. In the distance, the serpent ship shifted as if reacting to the change. The Mayan hum from the throne chamber became a steady, deep tone that could be felt in the chest. The tall man's voice returned to Rian's mind. "The first tower is awake, but the others are still in slumber. The Kathiri will know what you have done, and they will come faster." Now Rian hurried back through the passage and into the throne chamber. The walls were alive with moving symbols, and the throne glowed brighter than ever. He felt stronger, as if some of the tower's power had passed into him through the bond. When he reached the surface, the camp was in chaos. Some of the team were staring at the sky where the faint dome of blue shimmered above the clouds. Others were packing their gear in fear. One of them ran to Rian, saying that the Kathiri had stopped their march and sent their machines ahead. The machines were flying low over the jungle, scanning the ground. Rian realized they were searching for the source of the energy. If they found the passage to the tower, they might destroy it. Before the other towers could be awakened, he told the team to seal the opening with stones and roots while he thought of the next step. As night fell, a storm rolled in from the sea. Lightning flashed across the clouds, lighting the faint dome above. Rian sat near the temple entrance, listening to the rain. He thought about the map of the towers. Even if he could find them all, the journey would take time, and the Kothari would be chasing him at every step. But he also felt a spark of hope. The first tower was awake, and the blue dome in the sky was proof that the ancient defense could still rise. If the other towers joined it, the Kothari might be stopped without a war that would burn the earth deep in the jungle. The hum of the network continued like the heartbeat of something ancient, and high above the storm, the serpent ship drifted slowly toward the ruins, glowing faintly gold in the night. The next day would decide if the hidden network could be saved, or if the Kothari would claim the throne once more. The storm lasted through the night. Rain poured over the jungle and wind bent the trees. The hum from the awakened tower never stopped. It pulsed steady and strong, as if the earth itself was breathing. Rian barely slept. He sat near the throne chamber entrance, watching the sky light up with flashes of lightning every few minutes. He thought he saw the golden shape of the serpent ship hidden in the clouds. By morning, the storm had passed. The air was heavy and warm again, but the ground still felt damp underfoot. The blue shimmer of the dome in the sky was weaker now, as if it was waiting for more towers to join it. Rian knew he had to move fast. The Kothari were closer, and the first tower's light had surely drawn their attention soon. Sound of engines came from the east. It was deep and steady like the beat of a giant drum through the gaps in the trees. Rian saw the golden column of Kothari warriors moving toward the ruins. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight, and their strange machines glided above the ground beside them. He counted at least 40 warriors and 6 machines. The sight made his chest tighten, but he pushed the fear away. Some of his team wanted to flee. Others were frozen in shock. Rian told them to leave if they wished, but he would stay. This was not just about the ruins or the throne now. It was about protecting something that belonged to all of humanity. He went down into the throne chamber and placed his hands on the armrests. The glow brightened, and the hum rose until it filled the air. The tall man appeared again, his eyes calm but focused. "The enemy is here," the man said. "The throne is the heart of the defense. It can guide the tower's power against them, but only if you stand with it." Rian felt warmth spread through his chest and arms. Symbols rose into the air around the throne, floating in slow circles. He understood without being told how to use them. It was as if the knowledge had always been inside him, waiting to be unlocked above ground. The first Kothari machines broke through the trees into the clearing. They hovered silently, their golden surfaces rippling with moving light. The warriors followed, stepping onto the ancient stone of the ruins with slow, measured steps. The Mayans followed, stepping onto the ancient stone of the ruins with slow, measured steps. The Mayans leader was among them, taller than the rest, his armor dark with red lines glowing faintly. He raised one hand toward the temple and spoke in a deep voice that carried through the air. "Give us the throne, and we will spare your people. Refuse, and your world will fall." Rian's voice was steady as he called back from the shadows of the temple. "The throne belongs to humanity now. We will not give it to youth." Leader's eyes narrowed. "Then so be it," he said. The machines moved forward from their sides. Thin beams of golden light swept across the ground, cutting through trees and stone alike. The air filled with the smell of scorched earth. Rian focused on the symbols around the throne. He touched one, and a column of blue light shot upward from the chamber through the roof into the sky. Outside, a wave of energy burst from the temple floor. It spread in a wide ring, knocking the nearest Kothari warriors off their feet. The machines tilted in the air as if struck by an unseen force and drifted backward. The warriors recovered quickly and advanced again. Golden blasts shot from their weapons, striking the temple walls. Stone cracked and dust filled the air, but the structure held. Rian felt the tower's energy flow into the throne and from there into him. He touched another symbol, and the ground outside shook like a small earthquake. Cracks split the stone under the Kothari's feet, forcing them to spread out. The Battle raged for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. The warriors were fast and strong, but the throne's power kept them from breaking through. One of the hovering machines tried to dive toward the temple entrance. Rian focused on it, and a lance of blue light shot from the dome above into its side. The machine exploded in a flash of gold and fell to the ground in smoking pieces. But the throne's power was not endless. Rian could feel it draining slowly as the tower's energy was used. The tall man's voice returned in his mind. You cannot hold them forever with one tower. You must awaken the others, or this will end in fire. The Cathari leader seemed to understand this too. He called out to his warriors, and they began to pull back. The surviving machines rose higher into the air and moved out of range. The leader stared toward the temple one last time. We will return, he said, his voice carrying both anger and certainty. The throne will be ours. Then they turned and vanished into the jungle, leaving the clearing scarred and smoking. Sound of their machines faded into the distance until only the hum of the tower remained. Rian stayed in the chamber for a long moment, letting the glow fade slowly. When he finally stepped outside, the camp was quiet. Some of his team had hidden during the fight. Others had run away. Only a few remained, and they looked at him with wide eyes. They had seen the throne's power with their own eyes, and they understood now that this was not just a legend or an artifact. It was a weapon and a shield. Rian told them the truth about the towers and the guardians. He explained that they had to find the other seats before the Cathari returned in greater numbers. The survivors agreed to help, though they knew it would be dangerous. That night, as the jungle settled back into its usual chorus of insects and birds, Rian looked at the glowing dome in the sky. It was still faint but steady. It was a promise that humanity could fight back if they were willing to stand together. The Cathari had been driven away for now, but the real battle was only beginning. The morning after the battle, the air in the jungle felt heavy with silence. Birds sang in the distance, but close to the ruins, there was only the sound of dripping water from the leaves. The stone blocks of the temple still showed marks from the Cathari weapons. The smell of scorched earth and burnt wood lingered in the air. Rian stood in front of the throne chamber, looking at the faint shimmer of the sky dome above. It was still active, but weaker than before. He knew the Cathari would return, and next time they would come with more warriors and more machines. One tower's power would not be enough to stop them again. The ancient man had spoken of other seats in other places, each one linked to a tower. If all of them were awakened together, they could form a wall strong enough to protect the world. Rian gathered the remaining members of his team. Their faces showed fear, but also something new. It was determination. They had seen the throne in action and understood what was at stake. Journey ahead would be long and dangerous, but none of them wanted to walk away now. They packed supplies and weapons and left the ruins before midday. Their path led them deeper into the jungle, then up toward the high cliffs that looked over the valley. The ancient map Rian had seen in the throne chamber showed a line of markers stretching far beyond the horizon. Each marker was a tower, and each tower had a guardian days passed as they moved through wild lands. They crossed rivers whose waters roared against the rocks. They climbed ridges where the wind almost pushed them over the edge. At night they camped under the open sky, always watching for the golden glint of Cathari ships on. The sixth night they reached a plateau where the ground was covered with strange carvings. The symbols were similar to those Rian had seen around the throne. In the middle of the plateau stood a stone gate half buried in vines and moss. When Rian touched it, the vines pulled away as if blown by an unseen wind. A faint blue light spread from the gate into the ground. A figure appeared before them. It was not the tall man from the first throne, but a woman wearing armor made of silver and blue. Her voice was calm but strong. I am the second guardian, she said. You seek the seats of the kings, and you carry the light of the first tower. You have been chosen to awaken the rest. She stepped aside, and the ground beyond the gate opened into a staircase leading down into the earth. The walls were lined with crystal, that glowed as they passed. At the bottom, they found the second throne. It was shaped differently, but the hum and the warm light were the same. When Rian placed his hands on it, a deep vibration passed through the ground. Far away, a new beam of blue light rose into the sky, joining the first dome outside. The sky shimmered brighter than before. Two towers now worked together, and the air around the plateau felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. But with the awakening came danger. Far in the distance, they saw golden shapes in the sky moving toward them. The guardian spoke quickly. "The Kothari have sensed the second tower. You must leave before they arrive. There are more thrones to find, but your time grows." Shortrian thanked her, and the group began their descent from the plateau. Before they reached the forest, the golden ships appeared above. This time they did not land, but fired long beams of light toward the ground. The earth shook and trees burst into flames. The group ran through smoke and falling branches until they reached the shelter of the rocks. The attack stopped as suddenly as it began. The ships turned away, heading back toward the horizon. It was not a retreat. It was a warning that at night they rested in a narrow canyon where the walls glowed faintly from the reflected light of the dome. Rian thought about the faces of the Kothari warriors. They fought with precision and control, not rage. It was as if they believed the thrones were rightfully theirs. But the ancient king's voice had made it clear. These seats had been built for humanity's defense. If the Kothari gained them, the earth would fall under their rule. Forever weeks passed as Rian and his group searched for the third tower. They faced storms and floods. They fought wild beasts in the mountains. They crossed deserts where the sun burned their skin and the wind cut their eyes. Through it all, the glow of the dome in the sky reminded them why they kept moving. At last, they came to a valley where the air shimmered like heat over stone. In the center stood a circle of white pillars taller than any tree. Between the pillars lay the third throne, half buried in sand. No guardian appeared this time. Only a voice in Rian's mind telling him to hurry. When his hands touched the throne, the sand lifted into the air, swirling around them. The hum of the tower grew so loud it seemed to fill the valley. A third beam of blue light rose to join the others. The dome in the sky became brighter and wider, covering almost half the horizon. But before they could leave, golden shapes filled the air above Kothari. Ships descended and warriors poured out, their weapons glowing. This was no warning. This was the full attack. The battle that followed was fierce. Rian used the power of the throne to strike at the warriors, while his team defended the entrance to the valley. Blue waves of energy rolled across the sand, throwing the enemy back. Yet more kept coming. The sky was filled with flashes of gold and blue as the two powers clashed. When it seemed the enemy might finally overwhelm them, a roar echoed across the valley. From the far cliffs, beams of blue light shot downward, striking the Kothari ships. It was the power of the first two towers joining the third. The sky dome pulsed like a living thing, and the golden ships began to break apart. One by one, the Kothari fell back until none remained. The desert was quiet, except for the hum of the throne. And the wind over the sandran stood with his hands still on the seat, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. The ancient man's voice came again, soft but clear. "You have begun the work. When all towers stand together, no enemy can break this world. The king's legacy is in your hands." Now Rian looked up at the bright dome above. It was not yet complete, but it was stronger than before. The journey was far from over, but humanity now had hope, and hope was the first step toward victory.